Welcome back to the Business Ignite podcast, where we light the fire for business growth and marketing success. Your hosts, Ethan Walker and Samantha Reed, bring you the latest trends, expert insights, and actionable strategies to fuel your business journey. Let's ignite your potential.
All right, buckle up, everyone, because we're about to dive into some seriously next-level CSS.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Even if you think you've got a handle on cascading style sheets, trust me, this deep dive's going to unearth some gems.
Hidden depths, you say?
Oh, absolutely. Today's source material is a real eye-opener. Little-known facts about CSS by Joshua Maddox from 95 Visual.
They're all about that sweet spot where design meets strategy, a winning combo.
Right. And this article doesn't disappoint. Ready to uncover some CSS tricks that'll make your fellow devs go, whoa, how'd they do that?
I'm all ears. Hit me with it.
Okay, let's start with something that sounds deceptively simple. Curved corners.
See, even something as basic as a curved corner, there's a whole lot of potential hiding under the surface.
So true. Most folks, they just use a single value for their border radius, right?
Right, but here's where it gets interesting. That slash syntax.
You mean where you can control the horizontal and vertical radii separately?
Bingo. It's like having this fine-tuned control over the curvature.
Yeah.
Almost like using a design program, but, within your CSS.
Now that's what I call sweating the details.
You can create some truly unique shapes and effects that go way beyond your average rounded corner.
And speaking of details, this next one's a game changer, especially if you've ever grappled with layout debugging. I'm talking about the outline offset property.
Debugging, the bane of every developer's existence, right?
Tell me about it. But this property, it's like magic. You can visually separate an element from its outline so you instantly see any overlaps or fine-tuned spacing.
It's all about giving your elements some breathing room, visually speaking. A lifesaver for those intricate layouts.
And while we're on the topic of layouts, how about we untangle the world of tables?
Oh, tables, always a fun one.
Because, I was today years old when I learned there's a difference between display table and the table layout property.
Yeah, most folks use display. Table to style elements to look like tables, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But table layout, that's where the real power lies. You're not just styling how it looks, you're influencing how the browser actually renders that table.
It's like you're speaking directly to the browser's soul.
In a way. For instance, if you go with the fixed layout, that can dramatically speed up rendering, especially for data-heavy tables.
And that, my friends, is music to my ears. Anything that makes websites faster, I am here for it.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about making our code look good, too.
Oh, absolutely. Got to keep things clean.
This next one blew my mind. Using those invalid characters like slashes or asterisks to visually group CSS classes. It's organizational genius.
It seems like such a small thing, but seriously, it does wonders for code readability. Think of it this way. You walk into a library where every book's just scattered about, total chaos, right?
Don't even get me started on disorganized libraries. Nightmare fuel.
Exactly. Now imagine that same library, but everything's neatly organized, clearly labeled a dream. That's what this technique does for your code. And let me tell you, that kind of clarity is priceless, especially when you're collaborating with others or, revisiting your own code after a while.
It's all about making your code scannable at a glance.
Precisely.
Okay, ready for some visual flair? Let's talk animation, specifically those fractional values you can use with animation iteration count.
Most people just think of animations repeating a whole number of times, which, hey, works great for lots of situations.
All right, totally.
But sometimes you need that extra level of control, and that's where fractional values come in. Imagine an animation that needs to run for, say, 2.5 cycles.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Fractional values make it happen, no sweat.
So smooth. Now prepare to have your mind blown. Pseudo-elements. Styling content that's not even directly in your HTML, that feels like CSS sorcery to me.
It does feel kind of magical, right?
Totally.
Ever seen that elegant drop cap effect? Where the first letter of a paragraph is styled all fancy? That's pseudo-elements in action. It's about elevating the visual presentation, making the reading experience more engaging, and honestly borrowing a page from classic print design.
I love that link between web design and print history. So cool. And speaking of history, I have a confession.
Hit me with it.
Case sensitivity in CSS. Had absolutely no idea it was even a thing.
It's one of those things that often trips people up, especially since in most modern web dev, we're all about that lowercase consistency.
Lowercase for life.
Right. But knowing the case can matter, especially in specific scenarios like XHTML versus HTML, that knowledge can save you from a world of debugging headaches.
It's a good reminder that even in the world of code, where things seem so black and white, there are these quirks, these echoes of how things used to be.
Absolutely. And while we're on the subject of quirks, how about we tackle a CSS property that seems to cause endless confusion? Vertical align.
Ooh, I've heard whispers of this one. Sounds straightforward, but I know it has a reputation for being, well, a bit of a troublemaker.
It all boils down to this. Vertical align acts very differently inside table cells versus outside of them. It's like it has two completely different personalities.
It's kind of funny, right? A property called vertical align, you'd think it would just work vertically no matter what.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But tables, they always got to be special cases.
So before we move on, any other gotchas when it comes to this tricky vertical align?
Honestly, the main takeaway is table cells. That's where it shines. Anywhere else, and you're in for a wild ride. Experiment, test again, you know the drill.
Always test. Golden rule of web dev.
Truth. And speaking of things with hidden depths, did you know the color property is not just for styling text?
Wait, what? Seriously? I've literally only ever used it for text.
It's easy to think of it that way, but it actually plays into inheritance too. Let's say you get a button you're styling. Instead of like separately defining the border color, you can just do border color. Inherit. Boom. It inherits the color from its parent element. Saves you code, keeps things consistent, win-win.
Oh, that's elegant. Love me some efficient code. Okay, last but not least, we've got what sounds like a mythical CSS creature. The collapse value for the visibility property. I gotta be honest, this one has me completely stumped.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the lesser known values, and it gets a little tricky because we're getting into how the browser actually renders things, you know?
Down to the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. Now, we all know visibility. Hidden or display. None make stuff disappear, right?
Poof, done.
But they do it in slightly different ways. Think of visibility. Collapse as like a super specialized version of display. None, but for table elements specifically.
Okay, so if I use it on a table cell, what happens? How does it affect the layout around it?
So imagine you've got a table row, and you use display. None on one of the cells. That entire cell, it's out of there. And the remaining cells, they kind of redistribute to fill that gap.
Makes sense.
So you use visibility, collapse on that same cell. It's like the cell just folds in on itself without messing with the layout of the other cells around it. The space it took up, completely gone.
Whoa, that's wild. It's like collapse is way more precise, like a surgical removal. Man, this just makes me realize how much I don't know about CSS. It's humbling, really.
Isn't it amazing, though? There's always something new to discover, even for us seasoned folks. This field, it never sits still, which is part of what makes it so exciting. Got to keep learning, keep exploring.
So true. And for everyone listening, think about how you can use these hidden gems in your own projects.
Right, put them to work.
Want those super smooth, custom curved corners? We've given you the secret formula. Need to debug your layouts like a pro? Outline offset is your new best friend. And who can resist playing with fractional animation values? Your web animations will never be the same.
Out of all these CSS secrets, which one are you most excited to try? What really got your gears turning?
It really makes you realize, even something like CSS, which we use all the time, still has these hidden depths.
It's kind of mind-blowing, right? Just goes to show there's always something new to uncover, no matter how long you've been at it.
And that's what I love about this field. It keeps you on your toes. This deep dives just reinforce that for me. It's not just about like memorizing code. It's about understanding the why, the how, the history behind it all. It gives you a whole new appreciation, you know?
It's like we peeked behind the curtain and seen how the magic happened.
Exactly. And that's what I hope listeners take away from this. Don't be afraid to dig deeper, even in areas you think you've got figured out.
Curiosity is key. Always be asking those what-if questions.
So true. So as we wrap up our CSS adventure, here's a thought I've been wrestling with. If CSS, with all its rules and quirks, still has these surprises in store, what other areas of knowledge, things we think we know inside and out, could benefit from this kind of deep dive?
Ooh, that's a good one. What assumptions are we carrying around that maybe, with a fresh perspective, could be challenged or even completely flipped on their head?
Right. It's a thought-provoking question for sure. Well, on that note, keep those browsers coding and those minds curious. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Ignite podcast, where we fuel your business growth and marketing success. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us. It does help others find the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Business Ignite Podcast and share this episode with a friend. Keep the fire burning. And remember, your success is just one strategy away. Until next time, stay ignited.